Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you. Wrapping up today's show, big matchup tonight on the hardwood. Men's team heading down to Auburn to take on the number 13 Tigers. Tip-off at 8:30. Pregame coverage starting right here on the game at 8 o'clock. Joining us now to discuss this matchup from Auburn Live, the on-3 site for the Auburn Tigers, is Justin Hokanson. Justin, first of all, thanks so much for taking your time this morning. This Auburn team is a different kind of animal in Neville Arena, undefeated at home this season. Closest game they played was that 11-point win over Texas A&M a little bit earlier on in conference play. What is it about that home environment that this Bruce Pearl squad seems to thrive in?
Yeah, they are a different team. They just feed off the energy. I mean, it's become a really good home atmosphere. They've got 52 straight home sellouts now. And so the way it's sort of constructed and built, I mean, it's sold out, it's packed. Everybody's kind of on top of you. The roof's kind of low, so it keeps a lot of the noise in. So it's just a loud venue. And the way that Bruce Pearl's teams play, which is trying to create some havoc on defense and run when they can, and it just creates a style that's fun and exciting to watch, and the fans just really get into it. And if Auburn can get on a run when they get on some runs, the crowd just, goes crazy, and it just becomes a tough place to play. So, I mean, they had a 28-game home win streak last year, going into last year's snap. Now they're at 15 again in a row. So it's just a place they're comfortable in. The crowd feeds off it. They feed off each other. They play off of one another, and it's a tough place to go in there and beat them and try to hold them down from going on those runs.
Justin, Chris Clark here. Thanks for joining us. So I want to go to the tempo aspect of this game because I was reading this morning on auburnlive.com. You had a great notebook, basically, with a lot of stats, analytics, insight into this game. Really good read for everyone to go check out. But you noted, Auburn's tempo under Bruce Pearl. They like to run. On the other side of that is South Carolina, who definitely wants to slow down the tempo. You noted that Evamia's analytics has South Carolina number 355 nationally in tempo. So what is it very, very important to Auburn's success from what you've seen this season to be able to push tempo and play fast and get their opponents into that type of game?
I would say what's important for Auburn is to create turnovers on the defensive end and blocks and steals. Auburn wants to play fast to some degree. They're not the fastest team in the country by any means. If you go look at tempo the other way, I don't even know if Auburn's in the top, I don't know, I'd have to go find them, top 30, 40. They're not necessarily a team that wants to blitz down there like Alabama, let's say, and shoot the ball within the first 10 seconds. That's not necessarily Auburn. But they do want to get out and run. They do want to try to take advantage of some early looks in the shot clock. But more importantly, they have to create turnovers and get blocks and steals and then turn that into some fast break opportunities. They definitely want to run fast break-wise. They don't necessarily want to go down there and shoot within the first 10 seconds. So it's a little bit of both. But the way South Carolina plays, they slow the game down so much. Combine that with a physical team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, a long team, and it's the kind of team that can cause Auburn problems. I mean, in years past, this South Carolina, the way that they're sort of built, the way they play, is the type of team that can beat Auburn, that can cause them issues. It's why Texas A&M has had success against Auburn over the last handful of years. They do similar stuff, slow it down, they play good defense, they're physical. That game earlier in the year, Auburn beat them 66-55. So it was kind of that – it was a much slower-paced game, lower-scoring game for Auburn. So, yeah, I think it's a good matchup for Carolina. I think it's a challenging matchup for Auburn. At home, I think Auburn will be able to go on some runs, but I do think that matchup-wise, Carolina's tempo and the way they sort of go about things is a good way to try to slow Auburn down and match up against them, limit the runs, limit the energy, things like that.
We're joined by Justin Hokanson, Auburn Live on the On3 site. Go check it out for the Auburn side of this game. I tell you, Justin, this is honestly probably from a South Carolina fan perspective one of the biggest basketball games South Carolina has had in quite some time. Lots of excitement here about this game. And I was just curious,
a lot of Gamecock fans have started to even watch Auburn this past week against Florida. But for maybe people who haven't really tuned in that just know, hey, this is a good Auburn basketball program, but haven't watched a ton of them this year, who are maybe just from a big picture context or in the context of this game, who are a couple of key players for Auburn that South Carolina fans should maybe have their eyes on tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with Janai Broome and Jalen Williams, Auburn's frontline guys. At home, those guys are fantastic. Jalen has had some struggles over the years on the road and big games on the road, but at home, he's generally really good. So it starts with those two guys. Janai's your center at 6'10", and Jalen's the forward. Those guys combined for 50 points against Alabama a week ago. And so when they're on, they're tough. They're both left-handed guys. They're good around the basket, good touch. Jalen can step out and shoot the three. They're both really good passers, despite being frontline guys. And so the offense pretty much is going to run through them to some degree every time down the court. They're going to be involved. And so, like I said, at home, they're probably averaging, they're probably combining for about 34, 35 points a game or something like that at home. So that's where it starts. And then I think you move to, I think you keep an eye on Trey Donaldson, who has moved into the starting point guard role over the last 4 games. Aiden Holloway, the former McDonald's All-American, started all year. Aiden's really struggled. He's struggled shooting. He's not shooting the ball well. So now he's coming off the bench. Trey Donaldson, who's a sophomore, is in that point guard role. He's played fairly well, minus at Florida where everybody basically played poorly. But Trey's played pretty well as a tough physical point guard, and he's done well at home. And then you look at somebody like Chad Baker-Mazzaro, who comes off the bench. He's probably Auburn's best 3-man, but he comes off the bench, because Auburn, Chris Moore starts. He's got a lot of experience. Chad Baker is kind of that energy guy off the bench. He's probably the better 3, but he comes off the bench. He's probably the 3rd most valuable player on the team coming off the bench. He's a guy that probably averages about 9 and 4, but he does everything. He can assist. He can rebound. He'll draw some fouls. And so he's probably another guy that you watch coming off the bench. And then past that, it's just sort of a flurry of players. I mean, they played 10 guys. So whether it's Denver Jones at the 2, Dylan Cardwell comes off the bench as a center, they've basically got 2 of everything. They got 2 true point guards, 2 true shooting guards, 2 true 3, 4, and 5 that they can come off the bench. They're not really mixing and matching in terms of putting a guy out of a position. They've got a true guy at all those positions, 2 deep. So they'll run a lot of guys at you, but it's going to start with Janai and Jalen. When Jalen doesn't play well, Auburn doesn't play well. When you go back last year, you look at Jalen Williams, the games where he struggles, Auburn struggles. He didn't play well at Florida. He didn't play well at App State. He didn't play well at Alabama. I mean, all these games Auburn lost. Janai, they can win. Janai can score, and they can still lose. Jalen's sort of the guy that when he doesn't play well, they don't win. It's tough to overcome. So I would start with the front line. I think the front line is really, really good. I think everything else, it's sort of a sum of parts. It's not one great individual. It has to be a sum of the whole for Auburn to succeed and play well.
Well, hey, Justin, we appreciate your insight. We're excited to see what happens. Should be a good matchup tonight out there in Auburn.
Yeah, should be a really good one, man. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. Again, that's Justin Hokanson from Auburn Live, Auburn's On 3 site. He mentions all those guys they have coming off the bench. That depth for a team like South Carolina that tries and slows you down and really grinds you out, that's something that could certainly play into Auburn's advantage by having so many guys that they can bring in over the course of a game.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens here tonight. Can South Carolina keep Auburn from running? They don't turn the ball over a ton, and they slow it down so much. We've not seen teams go on these long, deep runs against South Carolina. That would be a key for a crowd that would be sold out again. Absolutely.
Excited to see what happens again, 8:30 tonight. The tip-off, pregame coverage starting at 8 o'clock right here on the game. Number 11, South Carolina. Number 13, Auburn. That'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Coming up next, the halftime show with myself and Terry Ford here on the game.